Tonight, a privilege or a right? The Supreme Court parsing words in a case that puts funding for Planned Parenthood on the line. And
this is obviously a very big day.
President Trump declares Liberation Day, rolling out long-promised tariffs to level the playing field.
Let me be clear with the House. A trade war is in nobody's interest.
While world leaders and the markets respond. And the political outlook after Tuesday's elections. Plus, caught in the crossfire.
We need to pray please for our church, for our people.
An evangelical church in Ukraine persevering in prayer after suffering extraordinary losses. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. Potentially denying Planned Parenthood access to Medicaid funding. Welcome to Faith Nation in Washington. I'm John Jessup. Well, on the same day, the Supreme Court issued a unanimous decision affecting the health of America's youth, allowing the FDA to crack down on flavored vaping products targeting teens. It also heard another major healthcare case that puts critical funding for America's largest abortion provider at risk. The South Carolina-based case examines whether states have the power to decide where Medicaid dollars can and cannot be used. Let's go to my Faith Nation co-host, Jenna Browder, at the Supreme Court with more.
This is a case with major financial implications for Planned Parenthood, and it's one many on both sides feel strongly about. This was the scene outside the court. Hundreds of protesters standing shoulder to shoulder with their signs and worship music. Inside, lawyers making their case to justices in Medina v. Planned Parenthood, South Atlantic.
They decided that Planned Parenthood was unqualified for many reasons, chiefly because they're the nation's largest abortion provider.
The question at hand, does a state have the power to determine where Medicaid dollars can and cannot be spent? The defendants say yes, because not allowing South Carolina that authority infringes on states' rights.
The family planning provision, which comes right after the language at issue, confirms that this is a protected choice. The state, quote, shall not restrict the choice.
In its lawsuit, Planned Parenthood says patients should have the right to choose where they go for Medicaid-covered family planning services. Their list includes breast and cervical cancer screenings, birth control, and testing and treatment for STDs. It does not, however, list abortion.
Planned Parenthood is the abortion giant in the nation. While it does provide minuscule services to the effect of mammograms or ultrasounds or high blood pressure checks, we know that 80% plus of the work that it does is in the abortion industry.
Sarah Parshall-Perry with the Heritage Foundation tells CBN News all 9 justices are considered textualists, which will likely determine how they weigh this case.
So every one of them is going to look to the plain language of the Medicaid Act, something that clearly prohibits abortion and does leave to the states at their discretion determination of what constitutes a qualified provider of any medical service in the state.
And indeed, one of the biggest sticking points in court came over the word right, and if an individual has the right to choose a provider.
It would allow the regulated entity, here a state, to define the scope of the alleged right it is not allowed to violate by deciding which providers are qualified.
The Alliance Defending Freedom, representing Medina and South Carolina, arguing the word right does not apply in this case. Liberal-leaning justices pushed back.
The obligation is to ensure that individuals can choose their doctor.
Planned Parenthood is not about abortion. It's about women's health and women's health care.
I'm here because I believe that every child deserves the right to life, and we shouldn't determine based on their size, age, location, or stage whether they deserve the right to life.
A decision in this case is expected in June. If the court rules in favor of Medina and South Carolina, it could open the gate for other states to follow suit and deny Medicaid to Planned Parenthood. At the U.S. Supreme Court, Jenna Browder, CBN News.
And a lot of passions there at the court. Well, true to his word, President Trump rolled out his long-promised tariffs on countries around the world, outlining his plan today at a White House garden ceremony, dubbing it Liberation Day. CBN White House correspondent Kelly Wright joins us now on the late-breaking development. So, Kelly, the president promised this will make America great again, greater than ever before, he said, addressing the $1.2 trillion trade deficit. What else did the president say when he rolled out these tariffs?
Well, he talked about a lot, John. Most notably, he talked about making America wealthy again through these tariffs. And the president stating in the Rose Garden before a very enthusiastic crowd of supporters, he stated that this is Liberation Day. He wants to liberate Americans from unfair trade practices and have reciprocal trade. The president went on to say, we are finally putting Americans first. And he added that trade deficits are no longer merely an economic emergency, they are a national emergency, and he's doing something about it. Here's what he had to say to the people.
Jobs and factories will come roaring back into our country, and you see it happening already. We will supercharge our domestic industrial base. We will pry open foreign markets and break down foreign trade barriers. And ultimately, more production at home will mean stronger competition and lower prices for consumers. This will be indeed the golden age of America. It's coming back. We're going to come back very strongly.
And John, to illustrate his point, he held up a chart at one point, and the chart was actually showing the disproportionate rates of unfairness that he claims other countries have done to us. For example, he showed how many rates range from 10 to 49% or even 67% against the United States. The president is providing reciprocal trade to the tune of 32% against some of those countries and lower for various other countries. The bottom line is, as I've stated before, he says that he's putting America first to make America wealthy again through these tariffs and reciprocal trade.
So the president is really looking to defend American consumers. We saw in advance of today's release, automakers had their best month yet last month. So we know how they responded in advance. How do you think they will respond now that the president's tariffs will go into effect?
I think you can judge by some of the people who attended this briefing today and this ceremony that took place in the Rose Garden. Among them were many people wearing hard hats. He had a lot of support, even from some automakers out of Michigan. One automaker actually was called by the president to address the crowd. Here's what Brian, the auto worker, said.
I have watched my entire life, I have watched plant after plant after plant in Detroit and in the Metro Detroit area close. There are now plants sitting idle. There are now plants that are underutilized, and Donald Trump's policies are going to bring product back into those underutilized plants. There's going to be new investment. There's going to be new plants built, and the UAW members, and I brought 20 of them with me. They're sitting right over here. We support Donald Trump's policies on tariffs 100%. So, Mr. President, we can't thank you enough. And in 6 months or a year, we're going to begin to see the benefits. I can't wait to see what's happening 3 or 4 years down the road. Thank you, Mr. President.
Kelly, that was
go ahead, John.
I was just going to say that's a strong defense. Do we know anything about how Wall Street might respond?
So the president, if you go according to what Caroline Leavitt said, the press secretary said yesterday, is that the president's not concerned about Wall Street at this point. He's more concerned about mainstream America. He made an appeal to auto workers. He made an appeal to Teamsters. He made an appeal to farmers, stating that he's out for the average American to help them get a firm foundation on making sure they have jobs and money in their pockets. It will take some time, as Brian, the auto worker, stated, but the president intends to get it done, putting America first.
All right, White House correspondent Kelly Wright. Kelly, thank you so much. Well, Congress is tackling another topic on the president's radar, addressing what's been described as judicial overreach. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London joins us now. Michelle, Senate Republicans today had a hearing that looked into ending the practice of universal injunctions by federal judges.
Well, John, Republican Senator Chuck Grassley says it's now up to Congress to limit judicial rulings.
Although our founders saw an important role for the judiciary, they didn't design a system that made judges national policymakers.
One decision behind this push came 2 weeks ago when U.S. District Judge James Boasberg prohibited deportation flights taking reported gang members to El Salvador. The Trump administration still carried them out, however, because it says the flights had already departed when Boasberg made his ruling. Flights have been paused ever since.
For a single judge to order the government to act with respect to people who aren't even before the court. That reaches far beyond the legitimate authority of the court and becomes policymaking. This is something none of us, Democratic or Republican, should want judges to do.
Despite Grassley's position on this power, he's recently opposed efforts to impeach Boasberg or any other simply over a legal disagreement. Democrat Senator Dick Durbin agreed.
We've heard repeated complaints from Republicans about the number of injunctions issued against this president compared to other presidents. Why so many? They ignore the fact that this president has issued more than 100 executive orders, the most by any president at this point in his term in at least 4 decades. Many are clearly illegal.
In his testimony, Notre Dame law professor Samuel Bray believes universal injunctions is a weapon against our democracy that should be taken away no matter who is in the White House or controls Congress.
Universal injunction is emphatically not a partisan problem. Universal injunctions and vacatur are stopping almost every major initiative of the second Trump administration, just like all the Democratic and Republican administrations in the last 10 years. They are a bipartisan scourge.
Other Republican senators voiced concerns that individual judges have too much impact on the balance of power among the 3 branches of government. Earlier this week, the House Judiciary Committee also examined constitutional limits on the federal courts.
This is a double-edged sword. Under the Biden administration, he did unconstitutional and unlawful things during COVID that were stopped with nationwide injunctions.
And both houses are pursuing legislation on this issue. The House bill would restrict federal judges from issuing nationwide injunctions. Senator Grassley's would limit judicial rulings only to the parties involved, rather than other parties that are in the same situation. John?
All right, something to watch. CBN Capitol Hill correspondent Michelle London. Thank you, Michelle. Coming up, Republicans sweep Florida, Democrats score in Wisconsin. What it means for the upcoming elections. Next. Welcome back. House Republicans scored a pair of big wins in Florida special elections, yielding the GOP a 7-seat lead, 220 to Democrats' 213 seats. Florida State Representative Randy Fine won the seat vacated by Mike Waltz after he became President Trump's national security advisor. Jimmy Patronis, Florida's chief financial officer, replaces former Congressman Matt Gaetz, who resigned in November as Trump's first choice of U.S. Attorney General. Patronis thanked President Trump after the win.
And I'm looking forward to working with him to help rebuild our military, to close the border, to keep men out of women's sports, and to get our country back on track, to drop this record high inflation and our national debt that is crippling the complete world.
The Democrats did, however, score victory in the race for the Wisconsin Supreme Court. County Judge Susan Crawford defeated the Trump-backed conservative candidate by 10 points. The win solidifies a liberal majority on the state's high court. Conservative groups and billionaire Elon Musk spent $21 million trying to defeat Crawford. Well, for more on the election results, Nathan Gonzalez joins us now here in the studio. He's the editor and publisher of Inside Elections and a Faith Nation contributor. Nathan, it's nice to have you on set.
Great to be with you always.
So Republicans expanded their razor-thin majority in the House, ostensibly solidifying President Trump's agenda. How do you see it, though? Is there any amount of foreboding when you drill down into the numbers?
Yeah, well, it wasn't a surprise that Republicans won because these were very Republican districts, but the margin is what is remarkable. President Trump won these districts by 30 and 34 points ahead of Harris in 2024. Wow. Now, these were 15, 14, 15-point races, so that shows that the political environment has changed. When you look at it with Wisconsin, Wisconsin is the most evenly divided state in the country, a 10-point win for Democrats. It shows that Republicans probably have some work to do in making sure that their voters, that the Trump coalition turns out to vote in elections when Trump isn't on the ballot.
You know, Wisconsin has been described as one of the swingiest of the swing states. So Democrats cemented their hold on the Wisconsin Supreme Court, basically dashing Republican hopes of shaping some of the agenda, whether it's on abortion to redistricting the congressional map. That brings us to Elon Musk. He invested a lot of time, and a lot of money visiting the state, campaigning for the Trump-backed candidate, and still lost handily. The White House today is pushing back on a report from Politico, which basically says that President Trump told his inner circle that Musk will be stepping down and backing away from duties and going back to his business ventures soon. Your thoughts on all of this?
I think with any situations like this, it's never one specific, I think, factor that plays into it. We have to remember, Elon Musk is a pretty busy guy, right? He's running major companies, SpaceX, Tesla, so there's that part of it where he probably has work to do. But also, I think he has been at risk of overshadowing President Trump. And President Trump, that's not something that President Trump likes at all. And so when you have that overshadowing with potentially Doge cuts or the things that Elon has been tasked to do, if those become politically unpopular, I think you could see the Trump and the White House kind of push him aside and say, hey, okay, your time is done. We need to move on to other things.
Time's up. So Senator Cory Booker is recovering today after his marathon 25-hour speech on the Senate floor against President Trump's agenda. His show of endurance is getting a lot of media attention, but some are saying he didn't block any Republican votes. So what did it effectively do?
Not much. I think he set the record for the longest Senate floor speech, but I don't think politically that this was a earth-shaking or game-changing moment. I think some Democrats, they're searching for a leader. They're searching for someone to stand up to President Trump and stand up to Republicans, and he literally did that for more than a day. But I don't think that it's something we're really going to be talking about probably even a couple weeks from now.
Your thoughts on the Trump tariffs and how it may potentially expose him to risks from the public that seems a little bit unsure about these tariffs.
Yeah, to me, it's all about outcomes. There's a lot of theories about whether the tariffs will or will not work or what their impact will be. We will see what their impact will be. And ultimately, if it hurts consumers, if it hurts Americans, if they believe that the cost of living is increased because of it, I think that there will be a political backlash. And the key, though, is that President Trump isn't going to be facing voters in 2026, but Republicans on Capitol Hill in the midterm elections are going to be facing voters. So they're going to feel more exposed by some of these policies than what President Trump does.
I know Speaker Johnson was there, but there's probably a lot of nervous energy there among Republicans seeing how this might impact them.
Because they have more they will face accountability sooner than what President Trump will.
Nathan Gonzalez, editor and publisher of Inside Elections, thank you so much for being with us tonight.
No problem.
Well, up next, the latest on Israel's war against Hamas and a miraculous story of loss and survival in Ukraine right after this. Israel is ratcheting up the pressure on Hamas, striking from both the air and the ground. The IDF announced a new objective today: seize more land in Gaza and build a security corridor that would cut off Rafah from the rest of the Strip, tightening its grip on the terror group. Gaza's health ministry says more than 40 Palestinians, including women and children, were killed in the latest wave of airstrikes. Israel says it will keep up the attacks until the hostages are freed.
We are now cutting up the Strip, and we are increasing the pressure step by step so that they will give us our hostages. And the more they do not give, the more pressure will increase until they do.
Hamas also facing growing backlash in Gaza. Today, protesters demanded the group step down, and one family even killed a Hamas police officer in broad daylight. Meanwhile, the United States has deployed 6 B-2 bombers to the region. The move comes as airstrikes on Yemen's Houthi rebels intensify, part of a broader strategy to pressure Iran over its nuclear program. Well, tensions are flaring again between Russia and Ukraine over attacks on energy sites in the face of an elusive truce, all while Vladimir Putin refuses to agree to a ceasefire. Meanwhile, a recent Russian strike hit a church in Kyiv, killing and wounding several worshipers. CBN's Gary Lane brings us the latest.
Sunday morning, March 23rd, a Russian drone approached the Emmanuel Church compound in Kyiv. It exploded 20 meters from a modular home housing Alexandra, her husband, Alexander, and their 5-year-old daughter, Nicole.
We use this house for people who need sleep and stay in church. It's for ministry and something like that. An explosion, big explosion, damaged this house in seconds.
Alexander and Nicole died instantly, while praise team lead singer Alexandra miraculously survived the blast.
She's sleep in mattress, yeah? Explosion put this mattress, and she's on the mattress, fly away.
Although Alexandra required surgery, the mattress protected her from shrapnel that could have caused more severe injuries or even death. Just a few hours later, the Emmanuel congregation gathered for service. With the congregation traumatized and grieving, one of the pastors, Vitaly Bontarenko, urged them to remain focused on eternity rather than their temporary losses.
It's not circumstances that guide us, but our destiny. People of destiny cannot be stopped. People of destiny are always winners. Listen, I want to tell you today, don't stop. There is a time when you can cry, but keep going, because you are a destined person.
The church suffered $50,000 in damage to Sunday school classrooms, the media room, and coffee areas. What can we do to help your church right now and also to help Alexandra?
We need pray for Alexandra for his health. We need pray please for our church, for our people, because our people still live in Kiev. Every day we have air alarm. We're strong in faith.
While members of Emmanuel Church desire an end to war with Russia, they don't look for agreements negotiated by governments to bring lasting peace.
We believe real peace comes only through Jesus Christ. It's our main position. And this peace comes for us every day, and that's why we continue to serve, share gospel, and help to people.
Enduring spiritual relief from their wartime suffering. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, ending on a bit of a lighter note, one of the newest residents of an award-winning zoo makes its exciting debut. Meet Poppy, a baby pygmy hippo. Born in December at 15 pounds and now 75 pounds heavier, she's finally exploring the grounds of Virginia's Metro Richmond Zoo with her mom, Iris. Poppy is one of about only 2,500 pygmy hippos remaining in the world. The zoo describes Poppy as curious and playful, adding that she loves trying new foods like sweet potatoes and bananas. And I have to say, pretty darn cute. Well, thank you so much for watching and have a great night. We'll see you right back here tomorrow.